guys, it is April from Getting Hugo with It. Today I wanted to talk to you about the best books that I've read in 2018 so far. So this is mid-year. I have read just so many wonderful books this year. I'm so excited. I've read a lot of books about resilience that I've really loved. I have read a lot of like horror and thriller books that I've adored. So I wanted to share them all with you here. These are just my top 10 so far, and hopefully this will help me later on by the end of the year when I start to go through what the best books I read in 2018 were. I'm hoping that will help me. So let's get into it. I should say that this is in no particular order, but I thought I would start with Memoirs of a Geisha by Arthur Golden. This book has a special spot in my heart because I was really aiming to read books about resilience this year, and this started it out with a bang. In this book, we are following a young girl in Japan who is sold to become a geisha, and you follow her childhood, you follow her in the process of training to become a geisha and becoming a geisha, and she really has to rely on herself. She goes through so many hardships, losing her family, feeling really misunderstood as a person, falling in love with someone and not being able to talk about it. I had already watched the movie of this a while back, and I kind of felt meh about it, and so I think that's why I put off reading this book. I'm so glad that I decided to pick this book up because it was so worth it, and what a way to start out 2018. I was also pretty amazed that this was written by a man. He really seemed to understand women in this book. Like, I really, while I was reading it, I was like, oh, this is written by a woman. No, his name is Arthur. Like, it was just incredible. So I do hope that you will go and pick this up. This is about 430-ish pages, so it's not overly long, but just enough time to get really attached to this character and just root for her. You are rooting for her the entire time. So loved that book. I also loved reading Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. This was my first book by Daphne du Maurier that I've read, and it will definitely not be the last. I am really hoping to read My Cousin Rachel really soon because, man, this was amazing. This was such an atmospheric book. In this book, we follow a woman who is like a lady's maid, lady's assistant, and she is on a cruise ship with this elderly woman, but she meets a man there, and he's very friendly, and they form a friendship, and then he asks her to marry him. And she goes back to Manderley with him, which is his estate, and she knows that she is his second wife. His first wife, named Rebecca, died, and it was fairly recent. I believe it was like a year ago that she passed away. And so she moves to Manderley, and she notices that Rebecca, her name is mentioned a lot. The servants admired Rebecca a lot, and she just feels like Rebecca's kind of haunting her. Again, it's so incredibly atmospheric. I wanted to walk the grounds of Manderley so much, and it seemed so beautiful, and yet you know that it's also just a place of a lot of sadness, honestly. A lot of sadness in Manderley, and I just loved it. You find out what in the world happened to Rebecca. Is a bit of a mystery that kind of strings throughout this book, and I really loved it. I hope that you will pick this up if you haven't read Rebecca yet. I can't wait to read more Daphne du Maurier now. Now for the best book that I think I've read in 2018 in total is How If You Don't Know the Words by Bianca Marez. I sadly don't have a copy of my own. I am definitely going to be asking for this for Christmas from Barry because I need a copy of this. It was so good. In this book, we are following two characters. We follow a little girl named Robin. She is white. She lives in South Africa during apartheid. She has lost her parents. They've both died. She goes to live with her aunt. We also follow a woman named Beauty. Now, Beauty is a black woman also living in South Africa during apartheid. She has lost her daughter. Her daughter isn't dead. She doesn't think, but she's lost her and she needs to find her. And these two storylines interweave. These two characters are so wonderful in their own ways, and you're rooting for both of them throughout this book. This is about belonging, and it is about resilience, and it's about what you will do for the people you love. I really, really strongly advise you to read it because every time I think about it, I feel warm inside because I just loved it so much. So yes, that's Hum if you don't know the words. Okay, number 4, I loved The Cabin at the End of the World by Paul Tremblay. This is a horror book that's come out this June, and it's so much fun. This is about a family who have rented a cottage or a cabin, and there's a little girl named Gwen who's sitting outside collecting grasshoppers, and this man comes up to her and he seems nice, but eventually he says, "Gwen, what's about to happen isn't your fault." And he goes towards the cabin where her two dads are staying. They're in the cabin, and she races in and tries to get her dads to like blockade themselves in, because she knows this guy is strange. He's obviously up to no good. Then 3 or 4 other people join this creepy guy outside, and they say, "We're not going to hurt you. We just need your help to save the world." And do the people get in? What happens to Gwen and her dads? So disturbing. Just like a wild ride. This is non-stop. There's no breathing time between the action. You just feel claustrophobic. You want these people to go away. Go away! And yet they won't. Go and read this. It's so much fun. So next is The 7 Husbands of Evelyn and Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This was my first Taylor Jenkins Reid. It won't be my last. This, I believe, is her first historical fiction book, and I hope that she will be writing a lot more of that now because this was so successful as well. So this follows a movie icon named Evelyn Hugo. She is in the movie industry as an actress in the 50s, and she really struggles in that industry, and yet she's also a very vivacious, very resolved kind of character where she goes after what she wants. And we follow her life as well as the 7 husbands she marries. And I thought there were so many twists and turns in this book. Like, there are twists and turns in this book like there are in thrillers. When you start out this novel, Evelyn is in her 80s, I believe, and she has decided to tell her story of her life to a young reporter. And this young reporter didn't expect this. It kind of comes out of nowhere, but she says, "Yes, I'll totally write your biography, no problem." And this is apparently the first time that Evelyn Hugo is really going to be entirely honest about her life. So much fun. Next is I'll Be Gone in the Dark by Michelle McNamara. I believe this is the only nonfiction on this list. And this is a true crime book about the Golden State Killer. The Golden State Killer was, oh my goodness, such a disturbing man. He raped and killed numerous people in the 70s, I believe, and it ended in the 80s. I could be wrong about that time period, but I think he stopped killing people when DNA really became a thing and the police were able to use DNA, and I believe that's what stopped him from continuing his killing rampage. He would like break into people's homes and put like flashlights in their faces so they couldn't see him, and then tie them up, and he would rape people and he would kill people, and it was very disturbing and very nerve-wracking for people who lived in this area. The Golden State Killer was actually found this year in 2018 through DNA, which is fantastic. But sadly, Michelle McNamara died before she actually got to see that happen. So this book is written kind of, it was partly her writing this book, and then she died, and then someone else took over the writing. So I must say it is a little bit patchy at times, but she died. What do you expect? Like her writing is so clearly Michelle McNamara's writing. So it definitely is a bit patchy, but I adored this book. Another disturbing one is Come Closer by Sarah Gran, and in this book we are following a woman who becomes possessed, and we're reading it from her perspective, and she becomes possessed very slowly, which I think is the creepiest thing about this book is how slowly she becomes possessed. And there are little things like she hears tapping and she starts to black out and not remember herself doing certain things that she's told that she does later. And it's very slow but sure, and to me it was just such a riveting book. I think I gave this 4 stars. Since then, I've thought about it so much that I've went ahead and gave it 5 stars. So I really strongly advise you read Come Closer if you're into horror. Okay, so next up is The Heart's Invisible Furies by John Boyne. This is about a little boy in Ireland. We actually follow him from his birth all the way throughout his entire life. He's born in 1945 in Ireland, and he's gay. And it's about his experience being gay at this time and throughout his life. Now, being gay in Ireland in the 1940s, as you can imagine, was not easy. It was illegal. Doctors would just say, "You're not gay. There are no gay people in Ireland." What? There are a lot of difficult portions of this book. You know, there are a lot of not so lovely characters. Cyril Avery, our main character, is adopted by 2 people who convince him over and over again to know that, you know, he's not a real Avery. He's just adopted. And he's told, call me your adopted father and call me your adoptive mother. That is heartbreaking for me. Just the idea of a child not feeling like they belong is so heartbreaking to me. But Cyril Avery is such a wonderful character, and you're just rooting for him the whole time. He does meet nice people. Like, this is a chunker of a book. I think it's about 600 pages. And it feels like for the first portion, you're like, is he ever going to meet anyone nice? He does. He does. There are some lovely characters in this book, and I just strongly advise that you read this. I loved it. Okay, so finally I have a thriller for you. I think this is the only thriller on this list. Interesting. I read a lot of thrillers. I loved The Woman in the Window by A.J. Finn. I loved this book. I know that this has a lot of mixed reviews, but I personally was so on board. This is it's a long one. It's like 400 and something pages. But in this book, we are following a woman who is a shut-in. She is agoraphobic. And so she spends her days watching old black and white suspense movies. She drinks a lot, and she also watches the neighbors. And one day she sees something through the neighbor's window that she shouldn't see. It's incredibly disturbing. She cannot get it out of her mind, and she needs to find out what happened. Now, finding out what happened when you're stuck in your house is incredibly difficult. And also, when you're stuck in your house and you drink a lot, not a lot of people will believe you. So, I really liked it. I thought it was a page turner. I think I read this in a weekend. I just couldn't stop reading it. So, yes. So those are the best books that I've read so far in 2018. Now, this could change as we go on. I'm not expecting all of these books to make it to my best books of 2018 because I am reading a lot of good books already. Like, I am currently reading the Book of Negroes, adoring it. So who knows if that's going to make it on the list for the end of the year. So let me know in the comments below, what is the best book that you've read so far in 2018. I would love to know, and I will see you later. Okay, bye guys.